If you have ever dealt with rude comments or behavior because of your weight, you're not alone. The International Journal of Obesity says more than 40% of U.S. adults report experiencing a weight stigma at some point in their life. That is when people feel targeted or discriminated against because of their body size. The journal also reported this kind of discrimination leads to an increase in mental health struggles. It's not surprising. So we've got with us licensed psychologist Dr. Kelly Ruggles. Hi, Dr. Kelly. Nice to see you. So first, let's talk about how weight bias became so common and give us some examples of the ways that it shows up in daily life, at home, social settings, at work.
Sure. So it starts with our culture, right? Many societies equate thinness with an ideal and fatness or being a larger size with a failure somehow. And as a result of that, that impacts our media representations, which portray the same type of stereotypes. And it even impacts our healthcare system, where our healthcare professionals are taught to assume someone's health status based on their weight, which can create blind spots in their care and how they treat folks of all sizes.
You know, Dr. Ruggles, how does this affect people's mental health when they are dealing with this on a daily or weekly basis?
So weight stigma is actually a very significant risk factor for a variety of mental health conditions, including depression and anxiety, eating disorders. It can even lead to social isolation, where you just want to avoid folks because you're worried about how they'll treat you. You even avoid your health care providers because you don't want to be guilted or shamed. And lastly, like any form of discrimination, it can result in chronic stress, which, as we all know, impacts our health outcomes.
You know, this isn't just happening in social or business settings. Healthcare and the workplace, that's two areas where weight stigma also pops up. Tell us about how that shows up. And then if you're in a setting like that and you're the target of that weight stigma, how do you handle it?
Absolutely. So as I already mentioned, in healthcare, it can show up as a provider, dismissing your health concerns and really blaming everything on your weight. And in those settings, it's really important that you advocate for yourself and that you make sure that you let them know that you feel like your weight is being overemphasized and that there are some other areas that you would rather address. At work, you can find that folks also might be making, comments that are rude or offensive. And in those settings, it's really important that you find your safe folks, that you report this type of behavior to HR if it's starting to impact your ability to get your work done, and that you make sure that you address those stereotypes and challenge them when they show up.
Does this swing the other way? Does this impact people who also struggle with keeping weight on?
It impacts everyone, right? So weight stigma is not just about folks in a certain body type. Anyone who is experiencing assumptions being made about them based on their body is going to be negatively impacted by those assumptions, regardless of your size.
Before you go, how do we combat this type of bias? What's the kind of language that should be avoided?
Right. We should absolutely avoid language that associates weight with either being positive or negative, really black and white language. We want to challenge any stereotypes that we hear in our environment. We want to promote body diversity whenever we can. If you get a chance to make a flyer at work, try to include folks with a variety of body types. And lastly, avoid commenting on other people's appearance. We should all kind of know this by now, but sometimes we slip up. But really try to focus on what you know them for and how they make you feel rather than how they look.
Great words of advice. Dr. Kelly Ruggles, thank you very much.